I've always been a misfit. I never quite fully fit in to one single group. Growing up in Michigan, it's what Mormons call the mission field outside of Utah. I didn't feel like a Utah Mormon. I didn't feel like I fit in with them. I didn't even feel like I fit in with the Mormons in Michigan. And though I had lots of friends that weren't Mormon, I didn't fully fit in with them either because I was Mormon and I did strange Mormon things. I did make some really cool Mormon friends in Utah in my teen years who, like me, were also a little bit antisocial, anti-authority, or being told what to do and how to think. I kind of felt like I found my people with Mormon punk rockers because we had a lot in common. And as I mentioned, the punk scene was getting really big during this time, and for me, punk was a perfect fit because it wasn't just fun music, but there was a whole culture along with it. Ideas about unity, a lot of anti-racism, anti-sexism, anti-bigotry. There was even the straight edge movement, which I wasn't part of, but there was a lot of punkers and hardcore kids that didn't drink or smoke or do any drugs, and that was part of the scene too. Taking care of your neighbor, loving each other. It went along with what I already believed and things that Jesus taught. So I didn't feel like I fit a mold, and that's like the definition of being a punk, is that you don't fit any mold. You're your own person. But also just not being judgmental, not judging a book by its cover. For me, I liked dressing like a punk because I was able to weed out genuine people, kind of. People would look at me dressed like a punk and assume a lot of stuff that wasn't true. I remember walking on a main street in Orem, Utah, and this old lady was walking on the sidewalk coming my way, and my mom taught me to be polite to people, even strangers, and I always said hello to ladies as they walked by. As a little kid, they'd be like, "Oh, hi, cute little blonde kid." But I remember walking past this lady and I said hello, but I had like a mohawk and like chains and ripped up clothes, and she just looked like disgusted and looked away and didn't say hello back. She looked like a typical like Mormon lady. I'm sure she's very friendly with people at church on Sunday, but she wasn't friendly with me because of the way I looked. But I met all kinds of people that didn't judge me for how I looked and waited till they got to know me, and that's what I did with everyone. First real show I played was in American Fork, Utah. We opened for a band called Strange Itch, and most of that band went on to become The Used, and their drummer, who was a friend of mine, later ended up joining Rancid, like my favorite band. So this is super awesome for him that he's been on their last few albums. I was really into the whole scene, going to concerts, playing in concerts myself, and dyeing my hair different colors and being creative that way. And I remember went to the Salt Lake Temple with my family. My brother was getting sealed, but I hadn't gotten my endowment yet, so me and my niece went and did some baptisms for the dead downstairs while they were doing the sealing, just to be in the temple at the same time. And this lady at the desk was like, "Oh, it's so nice to see young kids here doing the work of the Lord. Not like those ruffians I see out on the street. I saw a kid today with blue hair. Can you imagine that?" And I was like, "Oh no, not blue hair, yikes." It was really fun to express myself any way I wanted to, with my clothes or my hair or the music that I made. One of my sisters saw me with blue hair and she said to my mom, "Oh, if my kid did that, I would kick him out of the house." And I love this sister too. I love all my brothers and sisters. But I just thought, thanks, sis. I'm glad you're not my mom. I'm glad mom is my mom. I didn't think she would be so judgmental. Another brother saw I had like a spiked bracelet that I was wearing because I thought it was cool. And he was talking to a different brother and he's like, "Oh, you know Tim's doing drugs." And he's like, "What are you talking about? Tim doesn't do drugs." And He's like, come on, he wears that bracelet and he's in bands. He's for sure doing drugs. Oh, but I never touched him. Like, I wouldn't even drink caffeine. Although I played with my hair a lot, I would try and like comb it down for a church so it looked a little bit more presentable when I was like blessing, passing the sacrament and stuff. Around this time, I went in for an interview to get a temple recommend to go do some more baptisms at the temple, and I went in the bishop's office and he just signed the paper and gave it to me, and I was like, no questions? And he was like, well, you're worthy, right? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, you're good. I thought that was funny. Normally it was just go down the row each question. Well, my punk friends thought it was crazy when they found out that I was reading scriptures every day, reading the Bible, and that I went to church every week on Sunday. They're just like, really? You do that? That's crazy. And they're usually pretty curious, which was fun because then I got to talk about deep stuff with these friends. And at church too, they thought it was crazy that I was hanging out with kids that were doing drugs and other stuff that they didn't approve of. One time I went with some friends on a road trip to go see a band, Social Distortion, in LA. And I went with a group of Mormon kids that were into punk music. But there was a lot of people. It was an outdoor concert. A lot of people were drinking beer and it was getting spilled on us. And I went to church the next day with my girlfriend at the time. And they asked me why I was out there, and I was like, oh, we went to a concert, and they're like, oh, that's cool. How was it? And I was like, pretty good, except for all the beer that was getting spilled on me, and then they all like got kind of silent, like, oh no, beer? He just said beer? My parents' ward in Utah at the time was in kind of an affluent area, and all the young men like wore suit and tie, like kind of fancy, and a youth group came and visited from California, and some of the kids had earrings and stuff, and for them it wasn't a big deal, but I could see all the Utah Mormon kids just staring at them like, these kids are crazy. So that's more of the judgy attitude. In the New Testament, Jesus ate with sinners. He said, the whole need not a physician. And the church he was setting up was there to help people in need. And everyone's in need. And Jesus got judged for eating with sinners. And people in the church judged me for hanging out with people that they considered to be sinners. So I just felt like I was doing what Jesus would do. A lot of my punk friends were not Mormon, and they seemed to be a little bit more kind of lost. Trying to figure out life, trying to figure out who they are, where they fit in the world. And that's true of a lot of people in different groups that kind of join a group, even a religion or whatever, because they want to belong. A lot of people are kind of just trying to figure out who they are, and I had a good sense of self, and I was very self-confident as a kid. Maybe it was all the compliments my mom gave me all the time, but I was confident in the church that it was true. I hadn't put all the pieces of the puzzle together yet, but the pieces that I had put together made a lot of sense. Like, there were some pieces out here, I'm like, don't know what to do with, but I'm building like this corner of this puzzle, like what is truth and what isn't. And if it fits, then it's like, that's truth. Maybe there's a couple holes, but I'm working on it, right? And at the time, the church made like complete sense to me. I remember getting up for fast and testimony meeting, and I was like, the church is cool because it makes so much sense. And this older guy got up after me, and he's like, I like the church even though a lot of things don't make sense, but I just believe. And I was like, what's he talking about? It makes sense. I actually already started doing some of the mental gymnastics for like apologetics for the church. The church didn't allow black people to have the priesthood, and I thought, well, women can't have the priesthood right now, and they seem to be okay with it, most of them. And if I lived in ancient times, like in Israel, then only the Levites had the priesthood. And if I wasn't a Levite, then I wouldn't be able to have the priesthood, but I'd still be okay with it. Or with polygamy, I knew that the patriarchs in the Bible practiced polygamy, so I was like, the Bible is the end all, we want to match everything with the Bible. So I was like, Joseph Smith was just restoring a truth, like the prophets have extra wives and that's just the way it is. So as a teenager, I didn't see a problem with a lot of those things. I feel really dumb about this one, but I even accepted the dark skin curse thing about like Cain and the Lamanites being cursed with dark skin because they were unrighteous. And I was like, oh, that's just the way it is, because that's what it says in the scriptures. And I feel super dumb for falling for that one. That part of the Book of Mormon is ridiculous. But at the time, I just accepted it. Because of my tendency to question authority, I had issues with cops sometimes. I was generally a law-abiding citizen, but still I had issues with the cops. Went to a punk show in Provo. My friends were playing. The venue was owned by some friends of mine. But the cops came and told them they didn't have all the permits they needed. They needed to shut down. So we did shut down, but as we were leaving, there was a big group of people out on the street trying to figure out where to go. And the cops were like, if you don't leave in 2 minutes, we're going to start arresting people. And people were like, what? You can't do that? And then they just started throwing people's face down into the concrete and stuff. One girl was filming. She's like, I have this all on tape. They took it, took the tape out, smashed it, and just a total abuse of power. And I was like, these cops suck. A different time, I was in Michigan at my family's store, and it was in the evening, and there was a cement thing above the front door of the store. It's like on Main Street in this town, small town, but me and my friend got up on the cement thing just to kind of sit there and watch as people walked by. This cop stops his car. He's like, hey, get down from there. And I was like, no. And he's like, what? I said, get down. And I was like, no way. And he was like, you can't be up there. And I was like, yes, I can. My dad owns this shop and I can be up here if I want. There wasn't really anything he could do, so he just drove off. But that was kind of the cocky attitude I had. I don't know if it's cocky. I always believed in equality, and I believed in treating other people as equals and being respected and treated as an equal myself. I never really held anybody above or below myself. We're people, we're all children of God, we should love each other. But I had a real problem of like bowing to authority or just blindly following. Another run-in I had with authority, I was in Michigan and I went with the young men and young women's to this cabin. It was winter, so there was snow and there was a creek down the hill in the woods that was kind of frozen over. And the leaders said, nobody go down by the creek, it's dangerous. So, of course, me and some of the other young men went down to the creek and we're playing around. And I've walked on the ice so many times when I was in Michigan, and I fell in a few times, a little bit freaky, and it takes the breath out of your lungs. But this wasn't that deep. But I was on the ice, and the ice broke, and I fell in, and the other young men, instead of giving me a hand, they all just like screamed and scattered like pansies. But so I was in the cold weather, and I was like, dang it, I got wet. So I got out, went back to the cabin, and people were really concerned. They're like, oh no, you fell in the water. And I was like, it's all good, guys, I'm okay. But the next Sunday, the bishop of the ward, this isn't the problem bishop from before, just kind of one of his lackeys, really. This dude was pretty simple-minded. He had like cowboy boots and a beard, and he said in sacrament meeting, need to have all the young men in my office after sacrament meeting. So we went in there, and he just started to like lecture us and rail on us for not being obedient. And he said there was people that weren't obedient. You need to repent of your sins. You need to feel shame and remorse for what you've done. And one of the kids started like bawling, And I was like, this isn't right. What the heck's going on? Like, this kid's crying because I fell in the ice. So I said, this is Jesus' church, and he taught that we should love each other, that we should teach through love, not what you're doing, making these kids cry. I was like, dude, these guys didn't do anything. If you got beef, then take it up with me. I'm the one who fell in the ice. And that kind of put him in his place, having this like 16 or 17-year-old say this to him. But he looked at me and said, well, I can't discipline you because your family's records are locked in Salt Lake. I was like, you're such an idiot. Well, I felt really comfortable where I was at, with my friends, making music, going to church on Sunday. By the time I was 16, I finished all of the standard works, Old Testament, New Testament, Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl Great Price, all cover to cover, and I felt good about accomplishing that. And I started reading other books like James E. Talmage's Jesus the Christ and other church-related books. I was trying to get ready for a mission. As I was coming close to a mission, I realized that I would have to conform in the way I looked and dressed to the church's dress code for missionaries. And I was a total non-conformist. Kind of funny, because the LDS Church is a very conformist church. But I had always planned on doing it, and I believed it's what God wanted me to do. So I was like, for sure going to go on a mission. But I started to realize it was going to be a change, and I might not like some of that. But then I put in my papers and talk about my mission prep experience in the next video.